It's over. Cheers from a community once under siege, now breathing a sigh of relief at 11 o'clock.
The target of a massive manhunt captured. The man accused of planting one of the deadly bombs at the Boston Marathon alive and in custody tonight.
He became known as suspect number 2, or perhaps better to you, the man in the white hat.
After eluding police all day long, a takedown tonight happened in a Watertown backyard. Well, he was severely outnumbered by police, but this is the exchange that Johar Zanayev found himself in. He was hiding in a boat. That is the gunfire that was exchanged with police. The boat was on Franklin Street in Watertown, and he was discovered just before 7 o'clock tonight. State, federal, and local police flooding the scene.
For the better part of this day, Boston, Cambridge, Watertown, and beyond locked down in an unprecedented dragnet. Residents forced to stay in their homes and off the streets, heavily armed, leaving police no stone unturned.
So tonight, they are the brothers tied to the tragedy. One of them dead, one of them captured. Our live team coverage begins with our Sean Kelly. He's live right now in Watertown. Sean?
Heather, and it's such a dramatic range of emotions out here today, from the panic and the fear hearing those gunshots, and we were very close to them, and they were loud and they were startling, to fast forward when the SWAT team and police officers came out here and there were huge cheers. I want you to take a look at some of the scenes that we were looking at up on Franklin Street when police moved in. There was a crackling noise that you can kind of pick up on our microphones. You hear the better audio earlier. But right after those gunshots, police began to move into the scene. How did they get there in the first place? Well, they got a tip. Not long after the state police held a press conference saying that it was very possible that suspect number 2 had moved out of Watertown, there was a tip that came in saying that there was blood spotted on a boat on Franklin Street, a boat that was out of water. The person who called this in also believed that there was a person alive and hiding inside that boat. A perimeter was set up around the boat in that neighborhood very quickly, and within minutes we heard those gunshots so loud that it startled the state troopers who were in that area protecting the residents in that spot. It took some time later before police were able to actually move in. There were a few more loud bangs, more screams in this area, as you can hear people still celebrating. There were some more bangs, an effort to kind of startle the suspect number 2 as he was in that boat. They saw blood, but they could also see him moving, and they saw him from a helicopter that was flying above. And then all of a sudden we got word that suspect number 2 was coming out, which is what took place. He was put in handcuffs, put into a stretcher, loaded up into an ambulance that was brought closer to the scene and pulled out of here. And so it was incredibly dramatic, with huge cheers for the men and women who accomplished this arrest. Live in Watertown, Sean Kelly, WCVB News Center 5.
All right, now we want to show you a picture, and this is a picture of Boston Mayor Tom Menino getting the word from Police Commissioner Ed Davis that, in fact, they got him. And not only did they get him, they got him alive, which was their primary goal.
But take a look at him. This is a picture of the suspect in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. Late breaking information. He's at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. He has lost a lot of blood, and as has been explained to me by a Justice Department official, he is in a pretty bad shape. That was the word that the Justice Department official told me from Washington.
He's in very tough shape, and obviously now it's their job. The trauma surgeons over at BI, Beth Israel, are going to be fighting like crazy to keep this man alive, because they have to get him to face justice now.
Team 5's Kathy Carn has been working her sources, providing you information all night long. Kathy, now that it's completed, and here we are at 11 o'clock at night, what have you been able to piece together as the suspect has been brought to the hospital?
We've learned a lot more about exactly how this all went down. This manhunt took a major turn just before 7 o'clock tonight, when Watertown police received a call that there was a body in a boat behind a house on Franklin Street. Now, the man who spotted him was actually the boat owner. He actually lifted up the tarp on the boat and saw the suspect. He said he didn't move, so he thought he was dead. And that's when a massive law enforcement presence swarmed the neighborhood. There was an exchange of gunfire. The FBI hostage rescue team was on hand in case negotiation or communication was needed. Unmanned robots were on scene. The state police helicopter used infrared technology from from above. They picked up a heat signal under the tarp of the boat, and my sources told me that's when they believed this was 19-year-old Johar Tsarnaev. Police used several tactics to try to move the tarp. We learned there was a large amount of blood, but the suspect was still alive and moving. Then police asked the suspect to surrender, and all of a sudden, after a few minutes of asking him to surrender, he actually pulled himself up on the boat, stood up. They ordered him to lift his shirt up to make sure he didn't have any bombs strapped to his body, and that's when the tactical teams moved in and placed him under arrest. And the goal all along was to bring this suspect in alive, just like they would in any other case. That's the major goal, to bring him in alive, bring him to justice, and to get all of the answers needed in this investigation.
You said something at the very end. He was not wired, as suspect one was, apparently.
Yes, he was not wired, and they wanted to make sure of that because they didn't know what they were dealing with, because all along, you know, these two were heavily armed, and at this point they didn't want to take any risks. And so when he pulled himself up, they said, get your hands up, lift your shirt up, show us you have nothing strapped to yourself. And that's when the tactical team moved in, brought him into custody.
Amazing that he was able to pull himself up, given the nature of his injuries.
He has lost a lot of blood, and we were told there was a lot of blood. But all along, he was still moving.
Let's take you to Watertown. That's where News Center 5's Jorge Quiroga is tonight. You know, Jorge, that community has dealt with an awful lot in the last 24 hours. The feeling of resolution must make them feel pretty good tonight.
That's right, and as you know, this is a story that's being watched the world over. Just look around this parking lot filled with satellites. This is just about every global media outlet is here as a week of high drama and tragedy comes to a conclusion in a hail of bullets just a few blocks from where we stand. All the state agencies, all the federal agencies, all the local agencies came here afterwards for a press briefing, providing some moving details and to give thanks.
Well, on behalf of Crystal and Martin and Linksey, on behalf of the MIT officer who was lost last night and the transit police officer who was injured, on behalf of the hundreds of people who were hurt by the explosions at the marathon, I want to say how grateful I am.
This will continue to be an ongoing and active investigation as we sort all the details, continue to evaluate a tremendous amount of evidence, and file our formal charges.
It seems like many months since Monday, April 15th, the day of the Boston Marathon bombings. Yet it has been merely 5 days since the tragic explosions.
The man who found him at the boat said that he was covered with blood. We assume that those injuries occurred the evening before. There was an exchange of gunfire at the boat. I don't know if he was struck.
Now, the governor and the FBI giving particular thanks to the public for its engagement in providing clues, photographs, and tips that allowed them to identify and help them identify those two suspects. U.S. Attorney Carmen Ortiz was asked the final question. She was asked, this being a federal crime, will she seek the death penalty? She said, in brief, her work has just begun and that the U.S. Attorney will be the one who makes the final determination. Live in Watertown, Jorge Quiroga, WCVB News Center 5.
What an incredible 24 hours it has been, because, of course, it was this time last night that this violent situation began spiraling.
First, the tragic news of the shooting of an MIT police officer, and then a carjacking along Memorial Drive, followed by a wild shooting on the streets of Watertown. This is cell phone video from the overnight shooting. Dozens of rounds fired, multiple rounds fired, explosive devices thrown from a car pursuing officers. Liz Bruno live in the newsroom with this tonight. Liz?
Well, two officers are put their lives on the line in pursuit of the two bombing suspects, and sadly, one of them lost his life. 26-year-old MIT police officer Sean Collier was at MIT for just a little more than a year. He hoped to be a Somerville police officer one day, and those who knew the Wilmington native said he thought of his work as a calling. And his colleagues and students said his enthusiasm was contagious. His chief called him, quote, the real deal.
It's awful. This whole thing is bizarre.
It's sad. It's sad for his family, too. This is unbelievable.
From everything I know, people who know him, have nothing but praise.
It pretty well shakes up the community around here, you know. To see something like that happen, it's just, I mean, there's no words for it. I don't know what to say.
33-year-old MBTA officer Richard Donahue suffered a single gunshot wound during a shootout with the suspects. He is recovering at Mount Auburn Hospital. And colleagues say the married father of a 6-month-old child has a wicked sense of humor. Tonight he tweeted from the hospital, "Doing okay." Collier and Donahue graduated from the same police academy class, so they knew one another. Heather and Ed, back to you.
Of course, tonight our thoughts and prayers are also with the families of the 3 people that were killed in the marathon attack. Crystal Campbell of Medford, the father of 29-year-old restaurant manager, says she was very caring, very loving person. She was daddy's little girl. The youngest, of course, was Martin Richard of Dorchester. The 8-year-old had an ice cream in his hand and was watching the marathon with his family when the bombs exploded. 23-year-old Ling Zhu Li, the BU graduate student, was the pride of her parents in China and described her death as, and I'm quoting here, a dagger in their hearts. And tonight, little Martin's family is praising law enforcement officials by saying, "None of this will ever bring our beloved Martin back or reverse the injuries that these men inflicted on our family and nearly 200 others. We continue to pray for healing and for comfort on the long road that lies ahead for every victim and their loved ones." The Richard family saying it trusts our justice system will now do its job.
Janet Wu is at the Growing Memorial on Boylston Street near the bomb site at this hour. And Janet, people have been drawn there ever since this chapter, as the President of the United States put it, this chapter has come to a close. They're putting the focus back on the victims now.
I think it's a little bit of giddiness, a little bit of relief, but all tinged, as you say, with sadness. And several dozen people have gathered here at the corner of Berkeley and Boylston because they want to be able to pay tribute to the people, the loved ones, the people they didn't even know who suddenly were taken from all of us. As you can see from the expressions on their faces, there's a lot of emotion here. And of course, the wind that Mike Wonkum talked about is sort of wreaking havoc with the memorial, with the flowers and the flags. But there is sort of, you would say, a wind of relief. And among the people that are here paying tribute to those that we've lost are Kim and Alex, who, of course, work at Mass General. So you have really lived this tragedy for the last year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, this has been an extremely challenging week for all of us here in Boston, the state of Massachusetts, and the nation, really. And as a radiologist, as a physician who specializes in imaging, I unfortunately saw some of the films of the victims, which where we saw the shrapnel, the amputations, the traumatic injuries that they faced, and it's been tremendously challenging. And so we came out tonight to pay some respects to some of the victims and the 3 that were murdered this week. And it's particularly touching to be here, to be with so many other people who are coming out to pay their respects as well.
You are a healthcare worker as well, Kim. When you come out here and you see all these people and you think about what's happened in the past week, what are your thoughts?
I am Miss Wu. I'm also a nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital. And as a nurse, especially with bedside nursing that I provide, my heart really goes out, of course, to the victims, but especially to their families, because the families are the ones that are left behind, and our condolences really go out to them.
Thank you very much, and I'll leave you to your memorial. Thank you for joining me very much. Kim and Alex are just two of several dozen people that are here tonight, and as you can see, the crowd gets larger and larger as each minute goes by, and each time a police car drives by, they blare the sirens, and there's huge applause, and there's huge gratefulness on the part of everybody here. In fact, there is a police car coming through now. You'll probably see, almost on cue, cheers and applause for the police, the Boston police, as they drive by. Back to you in the studio.
President Obama is keeping a close tab on this entire situation from the White House tonight.
And he and the members of his national security team did gather at the White House in the Situation Room. And tonight, the president said the nation owes a debt of gratitude to the people of Boston and Massachusetts for courage after the attack. And he wants more answers.
Obviously, tonight there are still many unanswered questions. Among them, why did young men who grew up and studied here as part of our communities and our country resort to such violence? How did they plan and carry out these attacks? And did they receive any help? The families of those killed so senselessly deserve answers.
Kimberly, I'm sorry.
Tonight, some of those answers have been answered. Some of those questions have been answered, rather. Kimberly Bookman has been at the press briefing that happened in Watertown, and she's joining us now.
Well, Heather, I can really tell you that the people of Watertown have felt terrorized for the last 24 hours. Last night, many of them heard explosions. This evening, they heard gunfire. They were told to stay in their homes all day today and not to open their doors for anyone except for police officers. When police officers did knock on their doors, they came inside, they looked for the suspect. So it was really a traumatic experience for the people here in this town. Tonight, a sense of relief. Appreciation. Cheers of gratitude for law enforcement, local, neighboring, state, and federal, who for 24 hours combed the streets of Watertown and promised to keep them safe.
We have 2 small children and they don't know what's going on, so we just play along with it. And when the SWAT comes by, we just say, oh, tell them hello, and that's what they did, and thank you. Terrorized for days, knowing one of the suspected marathon bombers was on the loose, last seen in their town, people were locked in their homes, fearful. And then Friday night, when gunfire rang out on Franklin Street, sheer horror.
I'm on the floor. My fiance just said, just stay on the floor. And we literally just stayed there until the cops came in.
They evacuated her house and all those near where the suspect was hiding.
They came in the house, said, grab your shoes and run. And they just pointed up the hill and just said to run.
He said that he's right here and you have to evacuate. Perched on a hill as an ambulance carried the wanted man away and law enforcement moved out. Heartfelt thanks for giving them their lives back. And as a member of the media, I can tell you that I've had some interaction with a lot of these officers. In fact, coming into Watertown today, we had to stop a couple of times along the roads. We had to show our license and our press pass and make sure that we are who we say we are. They checked our cars out, and we had a chance to talk to a lot of these officers. They are working on 24, 48 hours. They hadn't had much sleep. They were exhausted, but they were really doing the work of the people, trying to keep everyone safe. And obviously, such a debt of gratitude to all of these folks tonight. Reporting live from Watertown, Kimberly Bookman, WCVB. News Center 5.
We're witnessing, we have a device that's called a backpack that allows us to go live virtually anywhere, and sometimes the signal breaks up. There was just a moment downtown at the memorial where police officers walked up to the crowd and the crowd gave them a nice live standing ovation, and we simply can't hold on to the shot because it's very windy and there's bad weather moving in, and Mike Wonkin will be talking about that in a minute. That's obviously contributing to it, but it's really a poignant moment out down at the this is it. It's actually stabilized a bit. By the flags, you can tell how the wind is, but that crowd on the side was cheering for the police. The police walk over to them, and the crowd cheered. It was really a touching moment. Let's get to News Center 5's Jack Harper. He also in Watertown tonight. He's been on one of the sides where suspect number 2, the takedown, was taken. Jack?
Yeah, this is one of the areas where you certainly could hear all of the gunshots last night and again tonight. The pizza shop is opened again. Some people were out applauding earlier. But you know what? It's kind of turned a little bit now. I think a lot of people are shifting their attention back to those who died and those who got hurt very badly. We got differing views on how some people think this thing should have ended.
I've been out here, like, just waiting for this moment, Like, the city of Boston deserves it, and they need it, and this is good. This is a good night. It's a good night.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. How about you? Glad to hear they got him?
Of course I'm glad to hear they got him.
Better alive, you think, or?
I'd rather him dead.
Yeah.
He deserves to die. You kill little kids, you die.
A lot of people feel that way. Tough words, but it's been a tough week, and you can understand the emotions. In Watertown, Jack Harper, WCVB News Center 5.
And we want to take you back now for another look at this site at the memorial as we try to refocus our attentions on the victims of this tragedy. And you can see that despite the fact that the weather is changing, thunderstorms are on the way. And as I'm looking over my shoulder at radar, it appears that they're just west of Worcester right now. And those are moving in and you can see it's not deterring the crowds at all. They have come out to pay respect to those people who lost their lives. And now that Boston's finest have come out, they are also spontaneously cheering and thanking them for their fine police work in the wake of this tragedy.
Let's go to Pam Cross, who's just down the street in Kenmore Square. Pam, there's a lot of very nice human connection going on at the memorial downtown.
Definitely, Ed. I have moved. I'm on Charles Street now between the Boston Common and the Public Garden. There's a spontaneous celebration here as well. Perhaps it's been such a tragic week with the loss of 4 lives, so many people critically injured, a number of people under lockdown all day, this entire region. I guess a lot of young folk in particular wanted to come out and let off steam. We have been watching hundreds of young people go back and forth across the street. Some of them were down on the Common by Tremont Street chanting USA, USA. They have American flags. There's 1 or 2 with a Don't Tread on Me flag. And as you can hear, the horns blow, they all cheer. A few times police officers have come by and they've cheered for them and applauded for them. So it's a spontaneous celebration. It is perhaps an opportunity to let off steam, some of that emotion and worry that so much of our region has held close to our chests for the last week. You can hear them over on Tremont Street still cheering. I'm not sure if they have speakers or not, but they were definitely doing chants and just applauding. So that's the situation out here in the streets. A great deal of relief. Reporting live from Charles Street, I'm Pam Cross, WCVB News Center 5.
There is, as we've been presenting you tonight, and you saw it live during our coverage this evening, just a spontaneous eruption of cheer and smiles on people's faces
and
when
from
it was
Boston,
resolved.
and we were getting a look at that in Boston. Let's take you back now to another neighborhood in Watertown where the violence really culminated tonight with the capture of suspect number 2. And let's get you to News Center 5's Liam Martin. He's there for us. Liam?
Heather, this is Mount Auburn Street, and just a couple of hours ago, this was lined with people. It's quiet now, but you can still see people kind of walking around, enjoying their freedom to walk around, the flexibility to do that, and occasionally someone still honking their horn. But I think we have some video from earlier tonight, about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, when they got this person. There was just an eruption of celebration in the roads here in Mount Auburn Street as the police left the scene. They were coming through this crowd of hundreds of people who had gathered on the streets of Watertown to say thank you to them, to cheer to them. And what was interesting, the police returned the favor. A lot of them were honking their horns, blaring their sirens, as you can hear there, letting people know that they appreciate that for a day and a half they were on lockdown in their homes, many of them. In fact, we talked with a couple of people who were on Franklin Street, which is just 2 blocks from here, who were holed up in their houses for hours on end today, from the time that shootout began until they were able to get Johar Tsarnaev in custody tonight. So a lot of relief. We talked with a couple of people about that. Here's what they had to say.
They're posting up, I guess. They're just setting up the perimeters and stuff. And we started hearing gunfire, and it was just like just gunfire left and right, and it happened. It was like 20 times, 20 shots. It was so, I couldn't even describe it really. It was just, I was sweating the entire time. I was just trying to figure out what was going on really.
Excitement. We knew that they had him cornered. It was just about, timing. It was in the boat. So it was just all about just waiting game, we're waiting, and then finally when we heard on the radio that they caught him, everyone just went ecstatic. Everyone was going crazy, excited.
That first person you heard, Lucas McNamara, is actually he goes to Watertown High School, and he was just a couple of houses away from the home on Franklin Street where Tsarnaev was, inside that boat. And he had to sit inside with his mother, his father, and his brother and wait this thing out, hearing the flashbangs that happened at one point, the gunfire that erupted before that. And he came out here as part of the celebrations once that lockdown was lifted, once they had, of course, got gotten the suspect. He came out here with everyone else, and they were celebrating in the streets. But as people were celebrating, there was also everyone that I talked to, the recognition of we still need to take time to recognize that while we say thank you to the police officers, we also need to recognize that 4 people have died in this tragedy. And, you know, we spoke earlier today with the father of Crystal Campbell, who said, we're glad that we're getting justice. We need justice, but effectively said we're still devastated. We're exhausted. We can't even necessarily begin to process that, but we're glad that the rest of the community is safe and that these guys are facing justice. Live in Watertown, I'm Liam Martin, WCVB. News Center 5.
You can hear a chant behind Liam, USA, USA. I'm looking at the weather radar, and we're going to bring Mike Wackerman here because, Mike, this is something that we need to be mindful of the next hour or so.
Yes, about the next hour and a half or so. It should be moving its way into Boston sometime around 12:30, 1 o'clock. Now, this line had a lot more punch when it was out in New York State, but it still has some pretty gusty winds, and it's actually moving off to the northeast at over 50 miles per hour. So a little storm like this can actually grab some of that energy, drive it to the ground, and so we're expecting some very gusty winds out of this one. There are no severe thunderstorm warnings left. The last one's expired at 11 o'clock, but still some pretty strong thunderstorms now just north of Springfield, which means also we'll probably see some lightning out of this system as it comes through. Again, the timeline on that is going to be about 12:30, 1 o'clock into Boston. There's one fine line that you see right here. This will kind of move its way through, but there is still more moisture that's going to ride up along this front. So although the main thrust of the rain will be early in the overnight hours, it is going to probably linger on a bit tomorrow morning. Let me give you a little timeline of what's going to be happening. We're watching this cold front out here to the west. What it's going to do is it's going to displace that warm air that we had around here. Today, temperatures in the upper 70s, our warmest day we have had since last October, and cooler, drier air is going to be moving in. Tomorrow will be that transition day. So let's timeline this out. This is right now where it's at. You see what happens around 1 o'clock in the morning. It moves into the Boston area. This is that towards the Cape at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Left behind is a lot of clouds, a lot of moisture. This will try to fill its way back in during the early morning hours tomorrow, but this is light stuff. We're not talking about any heavy rains here. We're also not talking about lightning and thunder. The lightning and thunder will be out of that initial burst that comes through. So then this all starts to move its way offshore. This is 10 o'clock in the morning. We're still seeing some rain down over the Cape, but you see the clouds are starting to break up off to our west, and as we head towards the afternoon, yes, we will be seeing some sunshine tomorrow, but much cooler tomorrow than what we saw today. Temperatures right now are into the mid-60s. Very mild out there. I don't think we're going to be quite that warm for daytime highs as we head for tomorrow. Now, the winds have been the other issue. Look at how strong these were all day today out of the south. They're going to be moving to the north and then eventually out of the west as we head through the overnight hours. Tomorrow morning they won't be too bad, but they're going to get a little gusty tomorrow afternoon. So keep that in mind. Tomorrow is going to be kind of a breezy day. You're going to be seeing sunshine, and the rain will be over with during the morning. In fact, these winds will stay gusty all day as we head for tomorrow. So tomorrow's forecast, showers in the morning, partly cloudy skies, right around 60 degrees by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We finish the day with mostly sunny skies, and that sunset tomorrow night, not until 7:32. High temperatures tomorrow, again, hovering right around that 60-degree mark. Some places will get a little bit warmer than that, into the lower 60s. So tonight, we have the thunderstorms out there. Some of these thunderstorms will produce some gusty winds. Also, some vivid lightning is certainly a possibility. Lows tonight, very mild, 48 to 52 degrees. But again, busy southwesterly winds at 15 to 30 miles per hour. Tomorrow, morning rain giving way to afternoon sunshine, 58 to 62 degrees. We'll see west winds at around 15 to 30 miles per hour. And here's what happens over the next several days. We've got a couple of chances for rain coming in here. Of course, the first chance is tomorrow morning. Then it will turn windy on Sunday with plenty of sunshine. As we head into the week, though, it looks like Tuesday is kind of our wet day with some windy rain across the area. Temperatures only around 50. There are no 70s showing up in this forecast, and there's another chance that we could see some more rain on Thursday. I think the rain on Tuesday is primarily just along the coast, but the rain on Thursday a little more widespread across the area. We should be finishing off the week with sunshine and temperatures into the 60s. So we will continue to monitor those thunderstorms. I think the strongest thunderstorms have now pretty much diminished in the western part of the state, but they will be marching through, and you will be hearing some lightning and thunder as we head through the overnight hours. Ed and Heather?
All right, back to our breaking news of the hour. And Team 5 Investigates has learned that as the manhunt for Johar Tsarnaev was playing out in Watertown, the FBI took 3 people into custody in New Bedford for questioning following the search at the apartment complex that we have pictured for you this evening. ABC News and a law enforcement source are telling us the individuals are suspected to have some sort of connection with one of the marathon bombing suspects.
All day long, the area around Norfolk Street in Cambridge was in lockdown. That's where at least one of the brothers lived. At one point, police announced that they were going to have a controlled explosion of some material that they found there, but that never happened. Several cars were towed away before investigators left the scene. Tell police everything, just be honest. That was the message from the suspect's father. Suspect number 2's father in Russia tonight after learning that his son had been taken into custody, alive.
Earlier today, the dad said he talked by phone with his sons just after learning of Monday's bombing attack. He says they told him they were safe, which he was concerned about, and that they never even went to the marathon. And we also heard from an uncle of the suspects today.
Never ever would imagine that somehow children of my brother would be associated with that. So it is atrocity. We're devastated. We're shocked. Yet again, I don't know, this family does not know how to share that grief with the real victims.
That you're hearing from is the uncle, and he lives in Maryland. He says that he has not seen the suspects since 2005.
So here it is. It's 11:30 at night. It's Friday night. It's windy, and there's a storm moving in, and the number of people who are downtown at the memorial continues to grow, and that's where News Center 5's Janet Wu is. Janet?
And you're looking at the Boylston Street, unfortunately, that we've been looking at for most of the week. Empty, no cars, no people. But then as the camera pans down Boylston Street here to the corner of Berkeley and Boylston, you can see where dozens and dozens of people have gathered here. People have been coming in shifts. They come, they go, but they're all here because as relieved as they are feeling right now, they want to remember. They want to remember the people who we lost in the last week, suddenly, just in a split second. With me right now are 3 of the people who came down to pay their respects to those that we've lost: Gabriella, James, and Kristen. We'll have you step right up this way. What brought you down here, Gabriella? And what you were telling me a story earlier about how you were so enthusiastic about watching the marathon from Wellesley.
Well, I go to Wellesley College, and we have the Scream Tunnel every year. And for us, it was very, very tragic because, you know, we cheer on the marathon runners like right during the middle of the marathon. And so for us, when we saw that people that we had seen just hours earlier went into such a horrific situation, we as a campus were very, very saddened.
And we can hear folks celebrating and cheering right down the street here. James, what brought you here tonight?
What brought me here is I go to MIT and just want to pay my respects here. It's been a trying time these past 24 hours, especially, and this whole week, and just wanted to be able to come out and be able to be here with the city and together as one.
Huge loss for your community today.
It was a very huge loss and very tough time for us.
Very difficult. And you, Kristen, what brought you out here tonight and what are you thinking?
I have a lot of friends really close friends that do live in Brighton, and so them being on lockdown all day was very nerve-wracking for me. So to be able to come out here tonight and see them and just kind of celebrate the relief that we're all feeling tonight is just an amazing thing. And to see how many people are out here and how many lives it's touched it's incredible.
And I noticed that a lot of people as well are also taking a lot of photographs tonight. I think this is something that everybody wants to remember, and they want to. This is one of those moments that you do not forget. And you'll see a lineup of police officers over to the side. When they showed up, there was a huge, huge cheer that came from the crowd spontaneously. I think a lot of people are very grateful to all of law enforcement tonight. Back to you in the studio.
All right, and we want to show you a picture of the city today. This is Boston, and pretty much a ghost town. This is Post Office Square on a Friday afternoon. When have you ever seen it empty like this?
That would be stuffed with lunchgoers.
It's just, it's a striking image. And take a look at Mass Ave near Berkeley, I believe. It's eerily quiet.
Really?
There's just not a car on the road other than police and ambulance, and there are no people walking around in the city of Boston. It was just quite literally a ghost town today. It was
Janet just showed us the live shot of Boylston Street. Boylston Street is empty, but yet at the corner of Boylston and Berkeley, you have that great number of people who are around that memorial. In the time that we have left, Mike Wonkum, you brought up a great point. A storm is coming through, and that means?
Yeah, it means some thunder. And people have been hearing a lot of loud, sharp noises, and so thunder in the middle.
Are frayed.
Right, exactly. So what you're going to be hearing tonight is perhaps a rumble of thunder that's going to be coming through. I think for for the Boston area, this is going to be coming through about 12:30, 1 o'clock. You can see what we're seeing out there just north of Springfield right now. Pretty good cell out there with some lightning associated with it and very gusty winds as well. So tomorrow will be a cooler, drier day as that line kind of pushes its way through.
Honestly, you were a little more concerned not too long ago. This might be a little more serious. But
right. We did have some severe thunderstorm warnings earlier out in the western part of the state. And actually, we've had tornadoes reported out in parts of Pennsylvania down through Washington, D.C. So the storm had a real big punch to it, but it's losing some of that now as it's coming through.
We can't underscore that enough. We're not going to see tornadoes or anything like that in this area tonight, but you can expect to hear thunder, which...
Hear some thunder and some gusty winds.
Which might be unsettling.
We want to leave you with one lasting image, folks. So we want to take you back to the corner of Berkeley and Boylston tonight, where the memorial continues to grow and the honor of those who were taken from us in the marathon continues to be recognized. Thanks for watching.